Roast, Tom, and a thinker, and Winders. All right. Okay, so this is our weekly all-team tactical meeting. So we're going to use this time to sync up on work that's going on around our org, eliminate blockers, and prioritize work for the next week. You may have noticed that I added a little "What do we do" section here. This is based on the output of the work I was doing on product positioning and why BCard. So our aim is to help purpose-driven communities use Web3 tooling to generate revenue and engagement. And I do believe that we could be the best in the world at this. You know, this is kind of the output of that process that we went through. So in case you don't remember why, you can always click on this why BCard. This is in the meeting minutes all the time, and it's on the homepage of our Notion site. But ultimately, the idea is it kind of takes us through the reasons why we could be the best in the world at this. And so that's why we're trying to be the best in the world at this. And let's go down onto our lag metrics. So in our dashboard, it says that we have 186 transaction volume, which is down 270 from last week. But when I pop open like my transaction list, I did like a little query to help me look at that stuff. It's weird. It looks like the last week transaction amounts are higher than that. So there's something wrong in one of these numbers. And again, I've known that there's been something wrong for a couple of weeks. It just hasn't been the highest priority to fix. But it is on my docket, hopefully for this week. So yeah, we shall see. On the lead metric side, these are the things that we hope will push the needle on the lag metrics. Oh, before we go there, I should mention that, you know, if we're aiming to generate revenue and engagement, you can see that when we generate transaction volume, our communities get revenue, right? And so that's why we're looking at transaction volume. It's kind of like when our communities eat, we eat, right? Like that's a kind of incentive that we're trying to create. That's our economic engine. As we're trying to create engagement as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the discussion, we're also going to need to adjust this lag metric a little bit. Maybe we'll add another one on top of here. But this is what we're trying to aim for right now, transaction volume. When we create transaction volume, this is the way that we can create revenue for our communities right now. And that may change in the future. On the lead metric side, this is doing to move the needle, and these can change frequently. So we have 6 weekly transacting users, down a little bit from last week, 1 new user, and 10 communities deployed. So that's what we are at right now. And we'll talk about those as we go through. First, a team-wide announcement. We're up to 10 donors and 0.67 ETH a month in matching funding. If you haven't donated to us on FlowState, please do. You know, that would help us a lot. If you have donated to us on FlowState, maybe consider upping your donation. But yeah, it's not something that I think necessarily we want to get more donors. So if you've already donated, you know, thanks for what you've done. But yeah, in terms of matching, we are at 0.67 ETH a month, and we'll see if we can get even more. New member intros, no one new, although I do see you in the audience. Quesardia, thanks for coming. Milestone perspective, 10 weekly transacting users is our goal. For the lifecycle emails, we're now making monthly statements available in the app. So that's something Tom's working on. And I also need to automate the onboarding funnel, which I hope to get done by the end of the week. On the user analytics side, we need to update the dashboard and database to make the latest data work. So in general, there's a couple of things that we know are issues with the current dashboard. And I'm just going to go ahead and investigate why those issues and fix them up. On the next product priority side, I would say in-app voting is what we've kind of landed on. I had a couple of candidates, in-app voting, merch store, and other kinds of things, endowment funds. But after talking to OMF, it looks like that voting aspect of things is really exciting to them, especially for these crypto curious communities. They're looking at communities. Well, you know what? This is something that I wanted to talk about in the discussion side, so I won't go too deep into it. But one thing I want you all to understand is that business is all about selling value, and we kind of take a rip on the value that we create for our customers. So if we look at our communities as the customer, then we need to create more value for them. And if we can create that more value, then it's going to be beneficial to both us and the community, right? The hope or like the sustainable way to build a business is to create more value than it would cost the community to do it themselves. And then we can kind of both reap the rewards on that. So we're kind of sharing our value there. So next up on the in-app voting will be proof of concepts and spec. There is some work to do around this, especially around the way that we set up our users' wallets. We kind of deferred this when we first made the app last year because the technology wasn't ready. But now it seems like account abstraction providers are ready, and there have been some experiments done in some consumer apps. So it looks like we're more ready to tackle this now than we ever have been. So we do need to run some proof of concepts and spec this out. But yeah, we'll talk about it in the discussion. In terms of 10 new users a week, the multiple user bug, while this is still to fix, not our highest priority since we're not getting a ton of users right now. We've only seen it happen twice. So we'll see. The website, however, has been shipped. So you can see if you go to getbcard.io, there is a new website. I kind of pared it down to its smallest possible thing. It's very similar to our old website. So it's not a massive upgrade in terms of the content that's on it or in terms of what we can do with it. But we did simplify it and removed a lot of issues, and we did update the design. So it's not bad. It's more mobile friendly as well too, as you can see here. So in general, an upgrade. But I will say that from the output of our positioning work, we're definitely going to have to change the copy and messaging. And I as well think that in terms of brand, this isn't necessarily, it's not giving me the brand feeling that I want to convey in our users. And so that's something that we need to note. In terms of new users as well, our messaging, I did create a one-pager on BCard and on the product positioning and messaging that we talked about over the last 2 weeks. So that's kind of the output there. The intent with these is that, either if you're working on BCard or if you want to know more about BCard, there is an easy way for you to understand where we are coming from, how we got to this what we do goal, and what we're doing to enable us to reach out to new users. So that's kind of what these two things are about. This is really about iteration on our product, and this is kind of like more foundational stuff, why BCard in general. We do need a way to test that messaging. I'm going to work on this, probably using Google Ads and MailJet landing pages to start. Those MailJet landing pages, they're really going to be based upon the brand that Hazu created, which is kind of like more bright and airy than this brand here, which is meant to be more credible, but I think also ended up being a little bit more generic as well. So ultimately, I think that that we'll stick with that kind of lighter, more area, punch you in the face brand over this brand, which is a little bit heavier and less. And ultimately, what we're trying to do, if you look at this product positioning and messaging, is we're trying to create a community feeling in our users, right? And so I think that community feeling. I mean, you see this. It feels very much like. I mean, it feels like it's trying to be TradFi in a way. And so that community feeling is something that we need to cultivate in all aspects of what we do, in our product, in our words that we use, and in our website as well. And so, yeah, we're going to be working on that over the next week. Hopefully, we'll have something to share next week as well. And the next thing is we have 10 high-quality communities. Tree Gems and BCards were shipped last week, so that's great. C3, we have all assets, but we haven't heard from them yet. They wanted to do something different with the card than what NF Thinker did, which is totally fine. But if they want to release it, then we're going to need to get that back from them. It's not a huge priority for me right now. But yeah, we shall see where we go. And then OMF, I did chat with them, and we'll talk about it during the discussion. But before we get into there, why don't we go into our Asana? And okay, so getting people to donate on Flow State. This is something that I added because it's streaming donations, so we just need to get it going. What I did for this was I created an article on how to donate. Sent that article to our patrons. Oh yeah, and before I did that, had a couple of contributors internally set up donation streams. So this was probably for something like like $1 a month or something like that. And then I sent that article to our patrons. And then I also promoted within Black Flag DAO, formerly Bankless DAO. And so we're up from 6 to 10. I'd like to get us up even higher if we can to 15. There's a couple more things to do on that, including promoting to our general email list and promoting on social media. So that's what I'm going to be doing over the next week. Two things that we need to add here, actually. Apply to Octant and apply to Alliance. So this one is due today, actually. So I'll try to do it as quickly as I can. Probably right after this meeting. Applying to Alliance, we've applied a bunch of times. We have never gotten in. I don't expect us to get in, but I do think it's worth it, especially after we just went through the Octant Accelerator. I think that's a little bit of traction. So hopefully that will allow us to, I mean, we'll see. Maybe it's going to help us. And then getting into the Octant Epoch, they just released an announcement, I think it was on Monday, that their applications for the next Epoch will be open. There's 15 spots. Would be great if we could get in. So we'll see. So these top three things are all related to creating a little bit more revenue for us. I do think as well on this flow state, probably a lot of this flow state, I mean, not all of it, but a lot of this flow state donations that are coming in, I think I'm going to be, I've been just thinking about it, but I would like to get some feedback on this. I wanted to be distributing it to contributors because I do think that we could do a little bit better on that front. Yeah, so I mean, what do people think about that?
Not
Any
opposed.
opinions? Yeah.
You mean what do we think specifically about getting more people to donate?
No, the opposite is we're getting these funds coming in streaming. What do we do with these funds? I was thinking like the majority, like 80% of it, might go to contributor rewards. You know, so based upon stuff that people ship, like so for instance, NF Thinker, you are shipping you know, these cards for us. Well, can we reward you on a monthly basis now that we have a little bit of ETH? Not a ton of ETH, but you know, a little bit. And you know, you have the BCard, but also to just start giving people some ETH to encourage a bit more contribution and a bit more output, I would say as well, right? Like in terms of, hey, get stuff across the finish line. If you have like a certain amount of BCard, then you'll get like a proportional amount of that contributor reward.
Yeah, we might want to take a look at like previous contributions as well, just to sort of figure out where we are. There were a lot of team members involved early on in the building phase of this. So kind of figure out, do we feel like those people have been compensated before we start compensating for new contributions? If not, what do we do about that? If so, then move forward with a plan.
Yeah, so I've always had like this is what I've always been saying. First is people like the people who will be contributed first are those that are currently working on the project. And the reason for that is because it will incentivize those people to continue working and incentivize more people to help push the project to success. The second will be the people who have contributed in the past. And so, you know, all the people who have accumulated BCard up to this point. And the third will be the patrons, you know, the people who put some money in, some donations in. And so we are really, it's not a lot of ETH, right? Like it's like, you know, like 0.67 ETH that we're looking at maybe. So I don't think it's enough to do all those three groups. I'm really just concentrating on that first group right now. The hope is that eventually we'll be able to compensate all of those groups.
Yeah, that makes sense as well, because, you know, in terms of the flywheel, in order to keep the flywheel still moving, we need to keep current contributors active and contributing. So yeah, I agree with that.
Cool. So we'll talk about it a little bit more. I'll have to create like a scheme to do it. But yeah, that's what I'm currently thinking right now. There will be current contributors with the intent to incentivize more current contribution. Because if we do that, then hopefully we can get to the point where we're making regular revenue, and then we can kind of expand who that contribution goes to. All right. Moving a little bit down the list, update cash flow for October 2024. Arcusty, how's this going? Are you ready to give a little report on this?
Well, I don't really have too much to add for the October. I think what I'm kind of focusing on is trying to make it so that like we have a November versus October, because I think that there'll be a little bit more of a story there.
Okay, great. Okay, Sardia, you didn't actually you wanted to come up. Okay, so if you want to come up, feel free. But Arkusti, appreciate that. Even just like a October, November, if you're able to give us like a one or two liner on this, that would be good. Like I guess like state of the, let's say the state of the treasury would be a good way to look at this, or a state of the cash flow. Anyways, leave that for now. Lifecycle emails. I did mention this earlier, but Tom, do you want to give an update on the monthly statement emails?
Sure. I guess. Excuse me. I guess the biggest work this week around the monthly statement emails has been focused on trying to expose the functionality we developed in terms of generating and sending monthly statements to the end user, so that it's available for them in the app, so that they can select their monthly statement from the current month or previous months, generate a visible and usable statement as one would expect from recent transactions, and also email that to themselves. So just a little bit of closing the loop in terms of what we had built in terms of batch distribution, to allow users to take advantage and use it themselves.
Cool. And do you think that's going to be like how's it progressing? Is there a lot left to do?
Oh no, I think it's pretty close. I had most of the fixes that we discussed on our meet on Monday in place now. I think it's probably just looking at another final review and a little bit more, a few more tests, and good to go to production.
Okay, great. And for the onboarding emails, hopefully it's going to get done this week, but essentially need to add automation, so new users get added to a list and automatically sent emails, and then need to write new emails, so welcome email, 2-day, 4-day, 30-day. And then that'll be kind of complete after that. So I'm hoping that by this time next week, most of the stuff will be complete. I'm aiming to tackle it tomorrow and Friday. On the Pool Together side, yeah, I haven't really gotten much from Coffee Crusher on this. I'll skip over this to the update website. Website is completed. I'm going to put this into accounting because I'm currently, I just undid that, accounting inbox, but we're kind of missing some information on this. But essentially, in our governance proposal, in our proposal area, there is a discussion about compensating people. So I'm just going to keep working on that, and then we will compensate people. But in general, it's done at least from the perspective of execution, and so that's a good thing. Got that website out the door. User interviews. Zudi is at a retreat this week. We'll try to get back on it next week. User analytics. This is what I said. We know that there are some bugs. It's very likely I'm not going to get this done this week, but I will do my best. Make a list of targets based on crypto donations. How's this going, Drost?
I recall you wanted to chat with me about that before I started building a list. So anyway, no, I have not started on that yet. I was working on those audiogram and stuff. So when did you want to chat about that? Was there anything specific about that list you wanted to?
I don't think. I think we did chat about it already. In general, if you create a list just based on that website, so if you just essentially go to this website and write down.
But are there particular data points you want me to capture? I guess is the question.
I think at this point we could just add them here, and then we could talk about it after we've got them all. And then we could, when we move them over into this community partner, we can kind of decide which ones we want to put into this not started section. So really the first the first step is just to create a list of these groups, and then we
Okay.
can have a discussion after on which ones we actually want to get information for.
Okay. Yeah. No, I have not started yet. That's a project for this week.
Cool. Sounds good. I will also mention as well, I had a chat with Rainus. And so Rainus started a new job. It's 3 days a week, but he doesn't know when those weeks, like when that's going to happen. And it's a sales job. And he wants to help on the sales side for BCard. Actually, that's really useful to me because I've been kind of spread thin doing product sales and communication. So he also wants to kind of work on that CRM. So Drost, if you and I create some, let's call them leads for him or some prospects for him, then he can start picking them off the list and cold calling, cold emailing, whatever it is, whatever it takes to get some more communities into the funnel. So I just wanted to give you that FYI too, because he's kind of interested in continuing on now that he's done his training for his new job and he has some time to do that. But he's not sure if he can come to this weekly meeting. Some weeks he'll be able to, and some weeks he won't.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Thanks.
All right. So he's also independently creating his own list of targets, not based upon this giving block, but some other things that he had in mind. So I said, put the list into this community partnership, and we will kind of review them together asynchronously. So Jost, I'll keep you in that discussion as well, but we can probably do it async on Discord.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then if the lists overlap,
Exactly.
I don't know if they overlap, but
If they overlap, it's actually 2 data points that we're like, oh, okay, so they're
right.
getting crypto donations already, and there's this other reason why they were put on the list. So that might be a good thing if they overlap, anyways.
All right, cool.
All right. Competitive analysis. This is something actually I need to review. So I'm gonna put this into the to review section. So next step is for me to review. I'll review it by tomorrow when I meet with him. Open Medicine Foundation, we're going to talk about today. This is done, the patron email. And so I'll mark that as complete. And Hero has had some inspiration issues. He's on the road today, but he said that he's going to find his inspiration and hopefully he'll be able to write this article a little bit more. On the contributor rewards and payroll, how's this going, Christy?
So I've gone through and done the roll salary stuff up through week 42 and put a like preliminary CSV out for that. One thing that I'm working on now is trying to figure out like what the current liability is for the current outstanding BCard for everyone, because that's the majority of what the compensation is in. I had a reconciled number for the annual report, but that's something I'm working on getting up to date on that now.
I have at some point. I'm sure I have it here somewhere as well. I actually have like a Google sheet that's pulling in a bunch of the outstanding BCard.
Yeah. But okay.
Not this. BCard holders. Yeah, this is it. And so it's looking at. Okay, so it probably doesn't take into account the accounting, but it did everything from before the accounting sheet.
Okay.
And so this has something here, but yeah. So there's some what 100%. What is this percentage? This is obviously wrong. B86. Yeah, this is wrong. This percentage is wrong, but ultimately, I'm pretty sure this is right. Like this line here, so you can see that there is some BCard going here. But yeah, okay. But yeah, so if you wanted to look at the outstanding BCard liability for everyone, we should definitely put this into it as well. And I'll just send you this in DM.
Okay. Yeah, and I noticed that there's some like bounty project stuff that's hasn't been like processed yet on the accounting sheet. So also looking at that, and I think we can carve out some time, a few minutes in the ops call to just review that.
Yeah. definitely agree. We can go through the that governance, the proposals and bounties, and kind of get them onto the accounting sheet tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. I've added the new ones, but there's some like older ones that I think there were a couple that didn't look like they had been approved, and then just some stuff that's approved but outstanding, and it doesn't look like it's been processed.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll go over that together, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get a like a dispersal from the multisig pretty soon as well.
Yep.
Cool. Hire. So this is a campaign that we wanted to run. Coffee Crusher seems to be MIA right now for this project at least. So we'll see. I do think that like these campaigns, they require a lot more coordination than we've been doing. When I took on that OMF campaign, and we did like an aligned campaign between ourselves, OMF, and Octant, it worked really well. I think that we can do something similar. I mean, Hire's getting a lot of they're getting a lot of play right now, just for the AI agents and stuff like that. So if we're able to, let's say, what is the word when you are doing something at the exact right time, or you're doing something because it makes sense at that time? Opportunistically, if we're able to opportunistically execute on some of these campaigns, that would be really good. When some of these projects are in the zeitgeist of crypto Twitter and Farcaster and all these other places, that's when it's a really great time for us to do a kind of like co-branded campaign. Anyways, we'll see. And then finally, see if we can make an audiogram for the weekly meet. This is done, right, Drost?
Sorry, I had to find my mute button. Yes.
Right, and we've been getting some good play on those audiograms. Like ideally, what I would like to do is, so we run our weekly meet on Wednesday, and then usually by like Thursday or Friday, Winverse has that weekly meet ready. And so if it's ready on Thursday, I would post a weekly meet one day, and then I would post the 2 audio clips like on 2 days after that, before the next weekly meet. So between every week we have like kind of 3 pieces of content. One, the weekly meet that Winverse is recording, and then at least 2 clips that Drost is creating on a week by week basis. And this creates a really good foundation for our 3 channels, which are Farcaster, X, and LinkedIn. So far, Drost, I think like those clips have been doing relatively well, and so this is like this is kind of like the foundation of what we need, and then from there, any campaigns that we do are kind of building on top of this foundation. So really, I'm really super pumped about this work that you've done here, Drost, because I think that it really creates it really does something for us that we haven't been able to accomplish before, which is regularly posting content on our socials. So yeah, pretty huge task execution, Drost.
Great, thanks. And then just a point of clarification on turnaround and also having Craig available. Since I'm not using the video component from the YouTube piece that Winverse puts out, I basically just throw that away. So the reason for me wanting to grab the Craig link is so that I can process that faster, and because I don't need to wait for the video. And then that also gives me all the avatars if there's one that I don't have that I need. And so that's just to be able to let us work in parallel. So I'm not waiting for Winverse to produce the YouTube output, since I don't use that video anyway, at least at this point.
So I see Winverse is typing. I'm hoping that
I
he'll
do
say,
see.
yeah.
You said gotcha. All right, awesome. Thanks.
So
Winverse.
basically, yeah, you can post in the team chat that link to Craig, and then we are parallelized and no one is blocked, which is great.
Perfect.
All right. So we're great on this. Anything else that people are working on that's not on this list? I mean, I mentioned in-app voting. I'm going to create a task for that. Well, I do have a task for that, but I need to kind of flesh it out. In-app voting.
I'm sorry. I can't remember if I mentioned the patron NFTs in app, but that's in development as well too, to display the NFTs that we've given to our users. So it's a bit of logic to detect if they own the NFTs and to have them be displayed. I just don't know if I mentioned that last week, that that's getting close to shipping.
Just adding it to the all team projects right now.
Yeah, I guess the reason why I'm calling it out too is in case people have a chance to take a peek at sort of the proof in the team chat and let me know if they have some ideas about the visual there. Certainly any design input would be appreciated.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess like in general, anytime you say something's ready for shipping, I always like to do another design look at it. I'll probably do that before we ship on both of these fronts, but I could do it sooner rather than later. I just want to get those monthly statement emails out, and I want to today apply for those to those grants. So I know I haven't taken as close a look as I could on the NFTs, and I will as I can.
Yeah, no big rush for sure on that. I just wanted to make sure that if people had some time, that it was on the radar for viewing.
All right. Yeah, so I added it to the all team projects as well, so that we can kind of look at these. I'll put on here. Awesome. All right. I think these lifecycle emails are a little bit more important here. Okay, great. Okay, anything else anyone's working on that's not on this list? All right, next up is what did we ship this week? So let's take a look here. Joe shipped some audiograms, and I posted them onto social medium. I also shipped a new website, and that includes work from Bobo, Zudi, Andrew, and Brett. So lots of people kind of worked on that. I shipped some one-pagers from the positioning work, why BCard, and product positioning and messaging. I also met with OMF for some product feedback. I promoted FlowState in the patron email in BDAO. I created an article to make it easier to donate. I poked our own contributors to donate, and the next up is to promote on socials and promote in general email list. And so I also handled some support requests, and I updated some automation stuff on our MailJet. It's not complete yet, but still working on it. I see Tom is adding some stuff there. Of course, Winverse ships our weekly meet to YouTube every week, which I have not put in there, but definitely appreciated and part of our foundational social. So appreciate that, Winverse. First cut of the user monthly statements in the app. So that's out as well in staging. All right. And next up, we're going to get into our product roadmap. So we talked a little bit over the last 2 weeks about first, like, why BCard? Why do we exist at all? What is our right to exist? Why should we exist? And why shouldn't we just pack it up and go home, right? And it's because we have something valuable to contribute. Unlike all of these for-profit companies that aren't serving these kind of bottom-up communities or these purpose-driven communities, I think that we can actually potentially serve them. And this is something that we're all passionate about, especially around Web3, how Web3 could actually help these groups. And so ultimately, we're aiming to, I think I've said it before, but our aim is to bridge the UX gap between Web3 and the real world. And so this is, I would say, even kind of upstream of that. And if you go into here, if you go into the YB card, it basically takes us down from here. Looking at the world today, large top-down organizations control everything, and the only solution to top-down control is bottom-up initiative. We're working to enable this. And so our aim is to help purpose-driven communities use Web3 tooling to generate revenue engagement. What we do is create user-friendly tools to help purpose-driven communities generate revenue and excitement. And there are many Web3 tools that can help, but they are extremely difficult for a normal person to use. And so we're bridging the UX gap between Web3 and the real world. And you can see that in our past products, BCard Vault, Shared Password Manager to help people save money, help communities save money without sacrificing security. Taxman is an easy-to-use tool to help DAO contributors understand their tax obligations. and our debit card, which is a payment card which helps any community raise money from TradFi fees, and offering a safe and easy way for anyone to join a Web3 community. Now, I would say we're not quite there yet because all you can do is get tokens. And so what else can you do with tokens? But this is how we're doing it. And if we take that a little bit further onto our what we need to build, it kind of gets us to this point. It's like, what else, right? What else can we do to enable to, first of all, to bridge that UX gap between Web3 and the real world? And more importantly, I think, or more, not as importantly, but let's say, what can we do to make it safer and easier for anyone to join a Web3 community? Because these are purpose-driven communities, and that Web3 tooling is a way that a lot of these purpose-driven communities can get the support they need to succeed. So ultimately, we need to figure out a way to empower these communities. And we've been looking at a couple of different ways to do this. In-app voting is one of them. Another way we're looking at is like a kind of easy to set up merch store. This is something that like almost every community, immediately they have a merch store. Why? Because it's a way for them to make money and it's a way for them to proliferate their brand. And another thing is these endowment funds. So if you've looked at what I've done with Black Flag Collective, I essentially used a couple of Web3 products together to create an endowment fund that we can use to fund in real life events. That's a proof of concept of an endowment fund that we could help others set up. And so I started asking OMF about this. I started asking smaller communities about this. I think like in general, the feedback that I was getting from OMF is that they're really trying to access the Web3 market. For them, they see these Web3 people as people who are also purpose-driven, people who are willing to use these kinds of new technologies, and they already know how to use those technologies. But when I mentioned to them the idea of making it easier for people to engage in these communities, creating engagement in their existing kind of Web2 user base, that also piqued their interest quite a bit. And I should mention as well that OMF is they would like they're very interested in the DeSci space, the decentralized science space. Their goal has always been to make that process of research more open. And there's a lot of legalities and compliance issues around this. So the way that they have to do it right now in the TradFi world is they have to, instead of like giving money to individual studies and such, they have 3 research centers that they fund, one in North America, one in Europe, and it may be 2 in North America, I'm not quite sure. But they have these research centers that they fund, and anytime anyone does like a clinical trial or anyone does research, it immediately is published in their kind of like internal network that anyone in those 3 research centers can access. And as a result, they are able to get to progress on these diseases like long COVID faster. So essentially, they're trying to open up medical research. So what really interests them about DeSci and it as well, like these bio DAOs, there's a couple of DAOs called BioDAO. You may have heard of Athena DAO or Hair DAO, which have been funded by these bio DAOs, is that it could give them access to 1, more research funds, 2, a kind of engaged community, and 3, just ways to. Well, I guess that's really it. Really, ultimately, it's more research funds and more people who are willing to get involved. But their idea is really around that openness. They want that kind of like the IP agreements that Molecule DAO has created is something that they see as really interesting. Hey, this is a community that funded the research. They get to decide what to do with the IP. It's not just based upon profit. It's based upon what these people, it's more of a democratic process. That's kind of a rundown of what this purpose-driven community is aiming to do. And so the next question is, how can we help them? So when I was talking to them, it seems like there are certain criteria that is required for these bio DAOs. One of them is that you have a community, and it's probably going to be like a Web3 community. And another one related to it is that you have to have some expertise in your field, and so they definitely have that in spades. And then finally, they will help you launch a token, and that token goes on an auction system, and those auction proceeds go to the bio DAO itself. And so they're hoping to get to the point where they can actually run an auction and people will bid on these kind of tokens, which will allow them to develop IP and then decide what to do with that IP. Okay? And so if you look at what they're aiming to do, what we can do to help them is help them create and gather that community in an easier way. If we could figure out a way for them to use their existing community and draw new Web3 people into like kind of the same space, use the existing energy that they have in Web2 and translate that into existing attention and energy in the Web3 space, then we can be helping them achieve their goals, because ultimately that attention, that energy is what's going to enable them to have a successful token launch. And that token launch translates into money that will create IP for them, which will create more reason for people to be around in their community, which will allow them to get more money to create more IP. This is the flywheel for them. And so they need to bootstrap that flywheel. Before I go any further, any questions or comments on that? Nothing. It was a lot of information. It was a pretty big information drop. And honestly, I'm kind of winging it as well. So I'm not sure if I said that in an articulate way. But does everyone understand kind of OMF, what they're trying to achieve?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think going back and looking at the transcript will make it even clearer, because that was a lot of an information dump there, and I was really concentrating on what you were saying. What popped into my head was the fact that, you know, you were talking about they wanted to they have this existing, maybe community is the wrong word, but existing interest base that's not Web3, right? And then they're looking to bridge that gap because, and I'm just paraphrasing here to make sure I understand you correctly, that they view the Web3 side as important because they tend to be more purpose driven. And so to bridge that gap between their traditional communities that do seem to be vibrant and then bringing in the Web3 side that tend to attract purpose driven individuals and communities, right? Is that what you were getting at?
Like
Okay.
pretty much it's universal across all these communities that they're always looking, these purpose-driven communities are always looking for two things: engagement for their users and revenue for their operations to continue to pursue their purpose. That is universal. And that's like OMF is the same.
Right. And so the thought that popped into my head was, you know, it's really the mission of what they're doing that attracts people, right? It's not so much the tech behind it. The reason for OMF being interested in the tech is because it attracts the kind of people that they think might be interested in funding these kind of things, right? So those are two different approaches, but then there's this Venn diagram, right? Where there's this overlap of, you know, people that are interested in maybe orphan drugs or medical development or something specific disease that's not really being funded, that kind of thing, as well as then people that are into Web3, right? I'm maybe not articulating myself well enough here, but what I'm getting at is that the tech should be probably abstracted to these communities, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you're exactly right in saying that people care about the purpose and they will use whatever tech allows them to get there. And so when people are thinking about OMF, why they donate to OMF is not because they really have this. The why behind it is because diseases like long COVID require a multi-specialized approach, and that's just not something that big pharma does right now. It's not something that they do. It requires access to medical research be kind of immediately available to other specialties. and that's what they're trying to do. That's the why behind it, is because they want to create the why behind it is they want to solve these diseases, these chronic complex diseases like long COVID, and the how is by opening up medical research through their in various means. But right now, the way that they're doing it is through their research centers, and that's what
Another
they really
thing
care about. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm kind of finished. Like you're absolutely right in saying like they see Web3 technology as a way to enable them. They don't see Web3 technology as something that they care about in and of itself. Although it really aligns with their philosophy, that's fine. What really they care about is the fact that it can enable pursuit of their purpose. That is the big reason why they are putting effort into this.
Another thing that popped into my head in terms of, what might excite people about it, or cause them to be more curious about it, right? And not to exploit the current disruption in, let's say, the Health and Human Services Department in the U.S. and FDA and all those things that fall under those areas, and that talk about disruption, especially in the U.S. We're probably going to see huge disruption over the next few years in terms of how things are getting funded, who the experts are. I have a feeling that there's going to be even less trust in government and especially government health. I won't get into the editorial on that, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about here. I think that might actually be, and I don't want to be too opportunistic here, but it seems to me like it's an opportunity to talk about, hey, if you're not comfortable with what's going on with decision making that's not based, whether it's based in science or not, or personal points of view that whatever, whether it's cronies making decisions versus science, that kind of thing. I mean, it seems to me like it's an opening or an opportunity to say, hey, look, this is another area where decentralization, blockchain technology is where we're trying to solve a problem, right? With human coordination and being able to solve problems. And in this case, it's, all the things that OMF is working on.
Yeah. So it actually is very interesting that you say that, because there is this theory called I think it's called like the Strauss-Howe generational theory, which talks about like 4 generations. It's also called the fourth turning, if you want to look it up. But essentially, the first generation goes through a bunch of suffering and creates institutions to help alleviate that suffering. The second generation takes those institutions and builds them up. The third generation basically figures out ways to make those generations to make those institutions, or to capture those institutions and extract max value out of it. And the fourth generation kind of ends up having to it's kind of on that downslope of institutions, which leads to the kind of renewal. It is a thing that's happened over and over in humanity, that institutions get built, institutions get captured, and then there is a natural reaction to that, which is when institutions get captured, for individuals to kind of band together to create the next generation of institutions. And that's what we're creating here. We are creating the next generation of institutions because, for exactly the reasons that you're saying, there's cronyism, there's bureaucracy, it has been captured, and we're aiming to create that next generation of institution. And it's not just us. There are tons of people. It is kind of like ripe in our generation that we want to be able to create these kinds of new types of institutions that we hope, even if they do captured, can be forked because things are done in the open and used again, right? That's what we're aiming to do. Well, whether or not we actually accomplish it, we'll see. It could end up being that these tools end up being co-opted by those same people, but we shall see. We still have to put up the good fight. Bringing that back specifically to OMF, they see kind of 2 audiences that they're looking at. They're looking at the crypto audience, which has accomplished a lot of things already on that funding side. If you look at HairDAO and AthenaDAO, and VitaDAO. They're doing lots of interesting things over there already, and they want to be kind of part of that. And they have this other group of people who, while they are donating and while they are patients, they wish that they could be more engaged. They wish that they could be more engaged in the process because they believe that engagement is kind of useful for their community. So they look at it from these two ends, these kind of crypto natives and these kinds of people who aren't crypto native, but they are already purpose aligned. And if we can figure out a way to rally those two groups, that would be really interesting to OMF. And they mentioned a couple of specific line items, in fact, about what they wanted to do. When I mentioned that we were looking at in-app snapshot voting, they were like, yeah, we want this. Like they wanted to run, essentially they wanted to run a couple of contests for communities on Farcaster or Crypto Twitter, and they don't have a way to do that right now, at least not a way to do that easily. And if these contests are running and they're able to be easily joined by people in their existing community, not only will they be able to engage those kinds of new users that they're looking at in the crypto native community, but they'll also be able to engage and energize their existing users. And having been in Bankless DAO, most of us went through Bankless DAO, we kind of understand the power that ability to have ownership over an organization will do. So, for instance, OMF said that they wanted to do a logo contest because they have a logo, but it's not something that they love. And so, is there a way for us to leverage on-chain communities to create a better logo for them? Is there a way for them to be to access great designers outside of their normal places that they look to be able to design a logo that not only they love but their community loves? Actually, that's absolutely possible, right? This just is one use case of being able to vote on a logo, being able to energize your community around it, and being able to access logo designers outside of their normal sphere. It's exactly what blockchain is good at. It is exactly what Web3 is good at. So if we can figure out some tools to make that happen, that would be really useful to them. Sorry, I've been talking a lot. I would love for someone else to have a take here.
Well, and also just thinking about reasons to go to the app. If there's something fun you're going there to do, whether it's voting on the meme of the week, even something just as silly, or not silly, but just as fun and simple and as that. And so that every week, that's a way, if that's something that people find fun, that gets them to check the app every week, and it gets them thinking about the organization and the card, and whether you're not overtly saying, hey, spend with the card, you're just keeping them top of mind with something fun, and then they end up using it as a result because it's more top of mind.
That's exactly right. And as well, our app would allow us to, like our progressive web app would allow us to send notifications to people when new votes are happening as well.
Right. I think of something like these games that become so viral and I've never even played it, but like Wordle, I keep hearing about Wordle, and people are addicted to these things where it's kind of a group experience to solve a puzzle. Maybe there's that kind of a thing that could a very simple thing that can be incorporated. Again, it's keeping them top of mind, getting them go back to the app. Maybe I don't know, somehow tied to. Well, now I'm just riffing. I'll stop there.
No, feel free to riff. I think in general, when it's fun, I think when it's fun, more people are willing to stay around, right? Like that idea that being part of a community, not only can you do good, but you can have fun. That is what can keep people around, right? Like you go to a job right now, it's not supposed to be fun. I think my parents always say to me, work is work. It's not supposed to be fun. And I just reject that idea because I really do believe that it's possible to have it all, right? We can be good at something and get paid well for it and enjoy doing it, right? That is something that is possible to everyone in the world right now. The only thing that stops it from being accessible to everyone in the world right now is that everything is really driven towards profit only. That's the maximization of everything ever since, whenever the 60s or before, right? There's less emphasis on purpose now. But if there was another variable in the equation other than profit, and there is in these purpose-driven communities, then it would be possible for all these people to feel fulfilled and have fun and get paid for what they're doing, right? That's kind of the future of work that we're looking at. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Dros. I do think that it's important to have a reason to come back or actually want to come back because you feel something, that community feeling that we talked about.
Just jumping in, that I definitely see a path to getting this off the ground with our current points-based communities, using BCard principally as the newest one that's point-based as an example. We could definitely deploy something out there that allows people to apply votes based on their current points collected, and then have that be fed out into sort of a community-based leaderboard. I was thinking if we were using BCard points to vote, everybody's been accumulating them. Every user has them. So maybe we could even run a little inter-community competition. So something along the lines of which community voted the most of their BCard, and reward that community with double points for a month or something.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. I think as well we could have and we've talked about this before, always having ongoing things that you could use your BCard points for, always having some decision you could make with them. Hey, Christy, I see that you unmuted.
Yeah, I guess this is like on a tangent or something, but I was sort of thinking along the lines of what do you subconsciously think about when you're using the different cards that you have in your wallet. Like I've got, bank card, like a merchant card or something, and then a community card. So like with a bank card, you're like basically just dealing with the bank and enriching the bank and getting something for yourself for that. Merchant cards, you're probably helping the merchant kind of target stuff, like marketing stuff to you. You get rewards, but it's really between you and the merchant. With the community card, you're doing something together with the community, and I guess we're kind of building out and thinking about like what are those, what kind of stuff can you do to kind of enhance the feeling that you get from working with the community. And even though the interchange share of it is pretty small, at least right now, there's probably other things that can come in, like the voting or feeling like you're participating with the community, directing the community and stuff like that subconsciously would kind of drive you to maybe select that card over the other options that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. That feeling that we're trying to cultivate in people. You're absolutely right, Arkisti.
But and like moving along that trend, that path of like, okay, my first relationship is me and the bank. Second one is like, okay, maybe there's a store that I use frequently. I get a card from them. But now I'm this community is important to me. Using this card, like what can we add to using this card that makes it even makes me feel even better about using it?
Yeah. And I know that we're over time too, so I want to end it on that note. What can we do? What can we add to the product? Going back to this idea of product roadmap, what can we add to the product to increase that feeling of community? Okay, that's what we're trying to do. That is our differentiator against these points cards that are giving you 8% back in a very unsustainable way, right? That is our differentiator against these kind of like crypto native cards, which are really like trying to be bankless. We are really straddling the middle. And so our aim, our differentiator, our goal is to make people feel that community feeling, feel like they are appreciated and appreciating others, feel like they are empowered and also have a shared purpose with other people, feeling like they belong and that they also have a strong sense of self. That's what a community feeling is. That's what we're trying to create in our users. And it's only by increasing the things that our product does, by adjusting our product, our messaging, and all of our assets to be a. It's only by adjusting all of these that we can actually create that feeling in our users. And make no mistake, creating that community feeling in our users is how we win. Okay? It is the most important thing that we can do. If we can make people feel an emotion, people will act. If we do not, then they will not. There's nothing that will get people to move if they don't feel something. And so our ultimate job is to get people to feel something. And in that, it's why I really like to think of product development as art. In art, you are trying to create an emotion in the viewer, in the listener, and whatever your medium is. Our medium is this product. And if we can create an emotion in people, not only will they feel something good, it also has the potential to change the world for the better. So I just want to cut it off there and say thank you to all of you guys for being here. Thank you for contributing. Even your thoughts, even just being here, is really, really valuable. So thank you all. And yeah, let's keep going forward.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.